Okay, so three things to cover today. The first one I want to talk about today is a historic house museum in Buffalo, New York, that is really starting to feel the impact of not having cross-border tourists. A bunch of you sent this over to me, so I really want to thank you all for that. Next, we got Hoekstra, doing his monthly rant about Canada again. Seems like every few weeks, he needs to remind everyone why Canada is being nasty. I don't know why these events in Canada keep inviting him. Nothing good comes out of it whenever he's invited. And last, a lot of you sent me the CBC report titled, "Is the US Starving for Canadian Travelers?" So I'm going to give you my thoughts on this one too. Today's backdrop comes from Steven, a US citizen who recently moved to Spain to get away from the shit show down south. It looks like a great place to visit. Might be a longer flight for Canadians, but at least you're not getting detained or dealing with rude immigration guards when you land. Thanks for sending this in, Steven, and I'm glad to hear you're enjoying your new home. All right, let's get started.
Next year tonight, it is a celebrated attraction here in Western New York, but a drop in international visitors appears to be taking its toll at Frank Lloyd Wright's Martin House. We have been telling you how Canadian tourism is down this year. In September, the number of cars crossing our 4 international bridges was down nearly 14% compared with a year earlier. That's according to the Buffalo and Fort Erie Public Bridge Authority. So in this week's newsletter from Martin House, the attraction was encouraging donations, citing that drop in international visitors. I stopped by the site today, spoke with the CEO about how tensions between the U.S. and Canada are impacting revenue at this historic home.
That 15% drop in crossings seems a bit low if you ask me. Canada has been reporting anywhere from a 25 to 43% decrease across the country in cars going south according to StatsCan. But whenever the US report their numbers, it's usually like 15 to 25%, maybe 20%. I don't know, it's the same damn border. You would think the numbers would line up a little bit closer. Now I don't know much about this Martin House, and this is actually the first time I'm hearing about it. Has anyone visited it before? Let us know in the comments below.
This is your friendly neighborhood architectural masterpiece.
It's the National Historic Landmark that draws architecture enthusiasts from across the globe.
This is probably one of the most famous houses that Frank Lloyd Wright designed.
Frank Lloyd Wright's Martin House, an architectural gem in Buffalo's Parkside neighborhood. CEO Jesse Fisher tells me on average, more than 40,000 people visit the site each year.
People who are really interested in architecture, who are interested in modern design, this is really a mecca. They come from all over the world to see this place.
In a typical year, Fisher says international guests account for roughly 20% of Martin House's tour program, the organization's largest source of revenue.
So 20% of their visitors are international visitors, and without them, they're struggling. I'd imagine that a place like that has a pretty high maintenance cost. So even without that missing 20%, it sounds like they're already in trouble. And you'll see later because they're scrambling to try to figure out how to plan for the rest of Trump's term. It's funny though. Trump supporters kept saying in the beginning that international tourists were not needed. Hell, some of the haters in the comments are still saying that. Well, we listened. And now they can go ahead and rely on their domestic tourism, just like these two clowns said.
Also, of course, like we could survive without a ton of international tourism. I think the tourism industry in America, and I don't know this as a fact, but I think our tourism industry is more based on domestic tourism.
I've been wanting to use this meme again for a while. It's been a while since I used it. And honestly, it's aged like milk in the desert.
But in 2025, there has been a sharp decline in the number of visitors coming from outside of the United States.
Right now, we are hovering somewhere between 3 and 5%, so it's really been sort of devastating for us from an operational perspective.
And Fisher says the bulk of that decline is that visitors from Canada are no longer making the trip.
It's been really hard, and we have had to make a lot of decisions this year of how to spend our resources, which are much more limited than they are in a typical year, because we simply don't have that Canadian revenue coming in and helping to support this beautiful place.
Fisher says in conversations with Canadian members and visitors, they point to concerns about the border crossing and recent rhetoric from the White House as the key reasons they've stopped visiting.
Well, at least this report is better than the one from New Jersey I just covered, where they said Canadians blamed everything on the exchange rate. But you heard her. Our money is key to them, and they're definitely missing it.
The conversations about the 51st state and not respecting Canadian sovereignty is the other piece of it, and that seems to be more of an economic boycott. We just don't want to go spend our hard-earned dollars in a country that doesn't respect us.
And Fisher says she doesn't expect that Canadian visitors will return anytime soon.
We're really really bracing ourselves for how do we not just get through 2025, but 2026 and 2027.
According to data from Canada's Statistics Office, car travel to the United States dropped more than 30% in October compared to a year ago, marking the 10th straight month of travel drops. As for Martin House, Fisher says they've extended programming for the upcoming holidays and are encouraging donations to make up for lost revenue.
We really try to be as self-reliant as possible, but this is a year where, just due to circumstances beyond our control, we really do need the extra support.
I give her credit. It sounds like she's accepted that we're not coming back to visit, and she's making alternate domestic plans. I respect that way more than if she were trying to offer us Canadian at par discounts, or 10% off, or some keychain or golf ball. I'm going to take a guess here, but my gut is telling me she didn't vote for her president. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with me on that one. We've all heard about the big tourist destinations like Florida, California. They're all suffering. But if you ask me, the smaller cross-border attractions are probably hurting even more than the Disneylands and Times Square types of spots. It's sad to hear, but then again, we didn't start this. Okay, I want to move on to our favorite second most hated villain, Pete Hoekstra. It's that time of the month again for Pete to put his foot in his mouth, and this time he's spewing rhetoric and accusing Canada of meddling with US election politics, all because of the timing of the ad that came out from Toronto. That's a load of shit. We know about the ad, and in my opinion, I'm glad we put it there. And the actual context of the ad came from your own former Republican president. It wasn't made up and it wasn't fake news. So once again, Pete is talking out of his ass. In this article, he said this: "You do not come into America and start running political ads, government-funded political ads, and expect that there will be no consequences or actions from the United States of America and the Trump administration." Well, Pete, we didn't come into the US to play the ad. Things are digital now. But I could say the same thing for you. You do not come to Canada, which you are right now, and start disrespecting Canadians on our own soil, and expect to be no consequences for the garbage you are saying. You are truly a gaslighting piece of shit. I don't swear much on this channel, but when I do, it's usually because I'm pretty pissed. And you know who else is pissed at Pete? The one and only Todd Maffin. Todd put out a video titled Meddling. Simple as that. If you follow Todd's channel, you know he's one of the nicest and most positive guys in the Canadian YouTuber space. And I've never seen him that pissed off before, to the point where he's dropping F-bombs as well. If you haven't seen his video yet, I'll put the link in my description below. You'll have to watch it on his channel, because I do want him to get the views, so his video gains traction. His message needs to get out there. So go check out Todd's video on this topic, and tell him Guard the Leaf sent you. I was actually going to talk a little bit more about Pete, but Todd pretty much says everything how I feel in his video, so I'm going to move on. Now this next report from CBC is an 11-minute video, and if I play the whole thing, my video would end up way too long. So I'm just going to pull out some of the important parts I want to talk about, and fast forward through the rest. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'll put a link in the description below if you want to see the full video yourself. All right, let's get started.
The relationship between its people isn't great. From the very top, Donald Trump, Mark Carney, this icy toast immediately after Trump recently called off trade talks, but right down to regular people like you and me. And I especially mean that if you're Canadian like me. Because look at these bars, round-trip car trips by Canadians to the US. Those are COVID numbers over there. You kind of expect those to be low, but 2025, year one of Trump term 2, that's a massive cliff.
Now, it might not look like a massive cliff, but it is. Think of it this way. That drop we're seeing right now is only about a 25% drop. And with just 25%, we're already seeing the US businesses and state governments panic. They are panicking. If they weren't, my channel wouldn't exist. But imagine if we pushed that drop down into the 30s or 50% range. If we ever got to that level, you would see complete chaos in the retail and tourism industries. And the dominoes would just fall even further to jobs, houses, car payments, local economies. Everything would get hit. Well, they're kind of already on that path, but having Canadians further the boycott will just add to it. With the way things are going, getting that bar dropped even lower might not even be that hard. All it would take is for Trump to say something really stupid about Canada again. And everyone who was on the fence before will finally say they've had enough as well.
Let's talk about the Canada-US border. In April, new rules kicked in, where if you're a Canadian staying longer than 29 days in the US, you need to register your presence with the US government. That means getting photographed and fingerprinted. For some, that's no big deal. A recent Angus Reid poll suggested somewhere up to a third of Canadians are relatively unbothered by any of that. But the other two-thirds, somewhere between concerned and this feels invasive.
Now, I will say this. In general, I fall into the not at all concerned or not very concerned category. There's a lot of countries around the world that already use biometric scanning at the airport. Singapore, for example, the one with the nice jewel airport. You don't even have to talk to an immigration officer anymore. Everything is fingerprint and facial scanners. You get off the plane, you line up at the e-gate, scan your passport, do a fingerprint or photo or both, and you're on your way. Now, when it comes to the United States, this is where I move into the feels invasive category. Why? I saw a comment from one of our viewers who said it perfectly. Other countries are not going to weaponize the biometric data they take from you. With the United States, we have no idea what other government departments the data is being shared with or what it could be used for. And with the current trend of the Trump regime, you know that data is not going to be used for anything good, and definitely not in ways that work for your favor. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me on this. Just going back to the topic of the Singapore airport. Here's a photo I took of the Jewel at the Changi airport. I think this was in 2023. It's hard to believe this is actually attached to the airport. It's probably the one place I don't mind having a flight delay. I would definitely much rather be stuck here than LAX.
So check out the latest travel data we're getting from both sides of the border. This line here, those are Canadian round-trip car trips to the US for all of last year, month by month. But here's what 2025 looked like, starting in January with Trump's inaugural take on Canada.
Canada should be a 51st state. Canada's a very bad abuser.
Canada's been ripping us off for a long time. Without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country.
Year over year, we've now seen 10 straight months of decline, totaling millions fewer trips to the US in 2025 alone.
Because of Trump, I'm not going to travel to the States.
It's going to be a while before we ever decide to do anything in the US.
And it's not just the land border Canadians are staying away from. Air travel is the same way. This first line, Canadian return trips from the US by plane for all of 2024, and then you see in 2025, January to October, drops once again in every single month. Travel to and from the US clearly down year over year. And mind you, this is at a time when Canadian travel overseas is consistently up year over year.
I've been reporting these numbers since day one on my channel, but it's nice to finally see them laid out in an infographic. I suck at making those, so I appreciate it when someone else does it. I'm really glad Canadians are supporting our international friends. I've seen a few haters in the comments saying that Canadians are not traveling to the US because we can't afford to. Well, Mr. Hater, I hate to burst your bubble, but we are traveling, just not to your country. We're redirecting our flights to Canada, or heading to Europe, Australia, Asia, or literally anywhere else in the world that doesn't detain us upon arrival.
While most travelers within the US are American, Canada is the single biggest outside source of visitors. Just over a quarter of all international visitors to the US come from Canada. Together with Mexico, that's more travel to the US than all other countries combined.
It's our largest international market. You're not just talking about, an on-the-surface economic impact loss of visitor spending. You're talking lost tax revenue to the states and communities. You're also looking at job losses potentially, especially in our border communities. There's a lot of jobs dependent upon that cross-border tourism.
Just like the Martin House I showed earlier in this video, cross-border tourism is taking a beating. But hey, Trump and his 77 million supporters said they don't need us. Now I get it. Not every US citizen voted for this. And I don't take pride in seeing businesses that didn't vote for this getting affected as well. But I really don't know how we as Canadians can support a business owner who didn't vote for Trump while still continuing the boycott at the same time. It puts everyone in a tough spot.
So, American businesses have been doing what they can to win Canada back.
If you come from Canada with a Canadian driver's license or a passport, or you use that goofily delightful Canadian accent, we'll give you a 30% discount.
Do I sound like I have a goofily delightful accent? Yeah, fuck you. A comment like that just makes me not want to go. When you're trying to win back people who actually spend money in your country, maybe don't insult us with your stereotypical bullshit. I apologize for swearing again.
Figure the top destinations for Canadians are New York, Washington, Florida, and California. From those states, we've seen ad campaigns specifically targeting those Canadians they can't afford to lose. From New York, just an hour outside of Montreal.
To our neighbors in Quebec, we know travel choices can be complicated, but if you're looking for a getaway that still feels like home, Plattsburgh and the Adirondack Coast are here for you.
From California, an ad that almost sounds more like an apology than an invitation?
Without you, we wouldn't be as beautiful. And we wouldn't be as full-bodied. Or delicious.
And that messaging comes right from the top.
The Golden State and Canada have always shared so much in common. Sure, you know who's trying to stir things up back in D.C., but don't let that ruin your beach plans.
It's like this very intentional effort to say, Canada, we're not Trump's America.
California, it's the ultimate playground, 2,000 miles from Washington and a world away in mindset. Because here in California, we've got plenty of sunshine and a whole lot of love for our neighbors.
What Gavin doesn't understand is that the issue starts at the border, and he has zero control over that. Janet Mills doesn't understand this either. On top of the other reasons Canadians don't want to go, they're asking us to go through pre-clearance or cross at land borders, deal with CBP's attitude, and possibly getting detained or harassed just to visit their state. It tells me they're not thinking about the issues from a Canadian point of view. They're just seeing it from an American point of view, which is basically, we need your money. Was my assessment correct on that? Let me know in the comments if I missed anything. I'm going to talk about one more segment and then I'll wrap it up.
And this appears to line up with how Canadians feel. According to an Angus Reid survey, standing up for Canada was a top reason Canadians gave for why they're planning to travel to the US less. And when asked, so then, where are you going instead? Tied for the number one answer was travel within Canada.
So 87% of those travelers say that they'll find somewhere else to go, and Canada is tied for the top destination alongside just other destinations outside of North America.
This week we were planning on going, but we decided to make a different decision.
Stand up for Canada. You know, they're poking us in the eye, so we got to poke them back.
The Canadian government has seized on this, introducing discounts on attractions that are federally owned or managed. So that means free admission to certain national parks. Same goes for some museums in Ottawa, Quebec, and beyond. Children can even travel for free on Via Rail. And all year, we've seen proof that more and more Canadians don't want to visit the US. Early this year, Canadian domestic travel up. Money spent up even more. Then later in the year, over the summer, an even bigger spike, billions of dollars more flowing within the Canadian economy. Canadian Airbnb bookings within Canada up in a big way. Growth in almost every single province and territory, and really big growth at that.
And I'm happy to say, my parents contributed to that 20% during their Eastern Canada trip this past September. And I know many of you have also contributed to Canada as well. This is a fundamental shift happening in 2025. And as that fellow Canadian said earlier, they're poking us in the eyes, so we need to poke back. And that just doesn't mean on the tourism or citizen level. It means the government level as well. I encourage all of you to watch the full CBC video, because I did fast forward through it quite a bit. But it's really a solid report, and I think everyone should see it. That's it for now, everyone. Thanks very much for watching, and if you're still here, I really appreciate your support. I'll see you in the next one.